Maybe a peace greeting is not appropriate for this, but I'm going to talk to the right wingers real quick that are in black spaces or black, period. You can have your grudge with the left because of their liberalism and let it all hang out philosophy that does no good for anybody. I'm with you on that for obvious reasons. But let me tell you something about that right-wing BS that many of you love to spout and spew to us. Like that's automatically some sort of solution simply because you got a problem with the left. That middle path answers a whole lot. Now, roads in general tend to go in different directions. Roads in general tend to have turns and twists in them. But there is still a middle of the road. And many of you have this problem in which you're not able to see the middle for whatever reason. I would say that this is not just a problem of black people, it's a problem of colonized and oppressed people. And unfortunately, a lot of you have taken on this right-wing rhetoric of not being the victim. Explain how it is that you can guarantee that nobody's ever going to be able to do anything to you that you don't want them to do. That nothing bad is ever going to happen to you and knock you down some pegs. That you're never going to be in a position undesirable. How do you guarantee something like that? If you can guarantee something like that, you don't live on this planet. You don't even live in this dimension. You already live in paradise if that's the case. So miss us, not just me, but miss us black folks with your right-wing BS, whether you're black or not. I don't feel a guck. I've already had this talk, and many of us already having this talk with the left wing. That's why I don't have to say much about it. But at right wing, No. Fit the guck out my face with that sure bit. Fit the guck out our faces with that sure bit. That right-wing stuff, that's also going to get us killed. Let me tell you what the reason is partially. That right wing is the same wing that says never forget 9/11, but you niggas get over slavery. That's exactly what the right wing says. So you Republicans, to be honest with you, I'm beginning to think you may actually have lower IQs than some of the leftists amongst us. And one of the reasons I say that is because you love to talk about some sort of alternative history in which we were never really victims. And understand this. Being a victim is not blameworthy. That's why they're called victims. Being a professional victim is blameworthy because then you got to start manufacturing victimizations, manufacturing crimes. And that's why I don't take what the colorism crybabies say, just hook, line, and sinker. I take it with a grain of salt. Then I turn around and when people start talking about what the Wyatts did to usins, I say, yep, that's true, because they've actually done more than what we know and could talk about. We can't make up anything that they've done. That's a far cry and a far difference. That's why it is that I'll sit up and I'll say, nope, we men don't have to sit up and take accountability for a furthermucking thing that's going on between us and women in the last 2 generations, except that we've made things too easy. We don't take accountability for anything else. Turn around, start talking about race. Nope, white folks, you take accountability for everything. Privately, I do say that we should have in-house conversations in which we take accountability for things that are within our control, and I excoriate the ninjas amongst us too. But this whole thing of let's blame ourselves, but let's never blame anybody else, man, shuck that fit. And see, that's the thing. Most non-ADOS black folks are really not on that stuff. But when some of them are, we hear about it. I forgot the name of that guy. I think he was of Haitian origin. King something was his name. And he was talking on that right-wing Republican BS. When he passed away from COVID, I was happy. I was overjoyed. I was relieved. And I was over the moon. I didn't dance and celebrate his death because I'm not allowed to. But boy, did I feel a sense of relief. Because he was talking right-wing Republican sure bit. It's the land of opportunity. You can just do anything if you just put your mind to it. No, the F you can't. That's not how it works. So now, when many people are upset about the Haitians being rounded up and mass deported. I'm also upset about that. My stance on immigration is that the moral thing to do would be to put black Americans in charge of immigration. Have us processing these visas in other countries. Embassies and consulates, diplomatic immunity. That would be the moral thing to do, put us in charge. We determine who gets in. Keep white folks out. My thing is let whites go and visit the United States, keep them out. See, the right wing really wants immigration from the same countries that don't have any interest in a lot of their people migrating to the United States. They want Scandinavians to migrate to the U.S. The Scandinavians are looking and saying, even for all your talk of socialism, we doing good over here. We visit you. We live here. And who can blame them? You see, poverty charges interest, and that's why we are systematically impoverished. That is true. And for the numbers of black men that are still achieving the middle class, understand that this is in spite of insurmountable odds, because the most likely person to fall from a middle class childhood to a lower class adulthood is still the heterosexual black male in America. That's not because we're doing badly. It's not because of the decisions we make because we're just bad people. It's because that's how it's set up. I know, I went through that too. And I was one of the lucky ones. Now, most people that went to the school I went to, most of the black students that went to the school I went to, came upon some hard times, but I don't know that they wound up sneaking into the lower class like I did. I made the mistake of staying in Atlanta, but I didn't know that was a mistake at the time. Fast forward, now Atlanta, the way it was back when I lived there, the rest of the country sounds the same way. You a heterosexual black man, you're the last one they want in the job market. Now, if you know someone that's different, but by default, you'll just be the last pick. So you can miss me with all of that, miss us with all that stuff, because in actuality, one of the reasons that a lot of black folks became Democrats was because the Republicans did not want black people telling them what to do and running the party. That's why the Democrats had time to sit back and see this exodus coming and say, well, this is what we're going to do when they finally do finish making that walk over here across the aisle, because we have time to make these plans. The Republicans didn't have time to plan any better, so they just ran them off. Get out of here, you N-word. And see, I don't know that it's actually a Native American proverb, but I've heard that it is. But whatever the case is, the saying goes that the right and the left wing belong to the same bird. And I actually know one of the private interest groups that governs both. They're called AIPAC, American Israeli Public Action Committee. Now, some people say, oh, black man, you're going into dangerous territory there. You know you can't talk about them Jays. Well, you know, a lot of the Jays are sick of them, too. They're not all unanimously happy with AIPAC. I'm just simply saying it's one of the groups that I'm aware of. It's the only one that I know by name that actually can play both sides against the middle. And so whatever reason they're allowed to do it. I'm pretty sure that they utilize dossiers. I mean, they do what J. Edgar Hoover did. You run for office, they got you. You don't believe me? Ask Cynthia McKinney. She'll tell you. You don't get enough campaign money to run a campaign, even if you're going to lose, if you don't get their approval. It's almost like they can print their own money. Mind you, I'm not talking about an ethnic community here. I'm talking about AIPAC. And I don't know what's going to happen to me for even mentioning them by name. I'm not sure, but I had to tell you the truth. But you see, that's that same bird. And they got us arguing with each other and arguing with other minority groups and arguing even with other black folks over which wing is the best one. Fool, it belongs to the same bird. Don't no wing hold anything up by itself. Nothing flies on one wing. No plane flies on one wing. No bird flies on one wing. If a space shuttle in orbit is floating around Earth with one wing, it's not going to be able to make a re-entry without killing everybody on board with only one wing. That's how that works. And we sit up here arguing over wings. Wings have to come in pairs. You don't have a choice. And we sit up here arguing over them. Arguing over single things that have to come in a pair and have to be controlled by a center between them. And we sitting up here dumb enough to fall for that. The only difference is, at least there's a conversation already about us leaving behind the left and its policies. At least that conversation's there. What about the right? When are you going to start playing them against each other? Instead of arguing with other black folks about Haitians, when most Haitians and most other non-ADOS black folks really don't have a grudge against us like that. They just want to avoid the dysfunction of the abandoned underclass. The worst of us, that most of us don't really glorify in our private lives, but won't do enough to actually excoriate and tell our kids to not listen to. The underclass that many of us indirectly glorify because we not only buy albums that glorify that BS, but let our kids do it and give them money to do it. At some point, you're going to have to boycott even that. If that sort of thing is entertaining for any reason other than satire, you're going to have to boycott that. Because that way of life is not sustainable. Ask Snoop why it is that despite for years being a hardcore, insane Crip, that was like an elite level of Cripdom in Long Beach. Ask him why it is that after years of being an insane Crip in Long Beach that he doesn't bang no more. That way of life ain't sustainable. You think his kids know about that? You think any of his kids know how to Crip walk? When you don't have to live that way, you don't. And we have not been good enough about deglorifying the dysfunction that goes along with it. Even Tupac said, do what you got to do, but know you got to change and try to find a way to make it out the game. And I don't like quoting these guys, but this is something that he said that did not glorify the sugarnet. And we sit up here arguing because other people actually can see this, the wisdom in what he said, even if they don't know he said it. We're going to argue with them over stuff most of us agree about anyway. Man, I'm sick of this mess. I'm tired of it. Nakmeezy, I know you're going to disagree with what I'm going to say next. But in actuality, even we're going to agree on a lot of this. I know why the Ghanaian said he was sick of the Nigerians. I also know why a lot of Nigerians are sick of the few Nigerians. Most of the Nigerians that go around making a bad name coming from one particular part of Nigeria. One particular part. Ask the other Nigerians and they'll tell you. And even within that particular part, most of them come from one particular ethnic group. Other ethnic groups will tell you the men in this particular group, although they're pretty good in business, they have a way of thinking that everybody else is stupid and foolish. And this is why they view people like this and they make a bad name for the rest of us when they go anywhere. That's why northern Nigeria is darn near a different country from the south. It ain't Kano or Kano. It's not Adamawa State or Cross River State. It's not Plateau State or its capital, Jos, for that matter. These are not the areas from which are coming these dirtbags that are making a bad name. But unfortunately, they do get out there and they do this. And they cause a rift. They cause the main rift between Africans and African Americans. I had to point this out to my own mother because she was getting sick and tired of them Africans at one point. Now, she'd raised me pro-black and all that, but I had to check her. Hold up, Ma, hold up. Now, you got problems with Africans? Okay, is it because of the ones you knew in grad school? She said, yeah, always talking down about us. I was like, okay, I get it. But don't get on me because I'm hanging out with Liberians, because they're not talking down on African Americans. Their only gripe is when they get disrespected by us. You don't do it to them, they don't have a problem with you. Liberians ain't doing this. The ones you met were from one particular country. She said, yeah, most of them were Nigerians. And I was like, see, there you go. And they didn't have Arabic names, did they? No? Oh. So we can rule out the North then. Hey, that's not where they were mostly from. They had names you could tell were Nigerian, right? And the thing she said was most of them had these names that almost sounded Japanese. That's what she said. That's one particular language. And when she said it, I was like, oh, yep, okay, that's right. I know which language you're talking about, Mom. And to her credit, she began to understand. Yeah, that's them. It's not all Africans. She began to realize this. And the funny thing, too, is this whole ADOS and non-ADOS grudge and everything else, this largely got started by a lady in the gynocracy and in the matriarchy, and she don't even like eggplant, if you will. So that's why I look at Tariq Nasheed and I'm like, why would you take this that far? And even Tariq don't hate them, but why would you take this that far from a lady who's clearly affected by an agenda that's designed against us? clearly affected by an agenda of which Tariq Nasheed does not approve. That booty bandit, male dress-wearing agenda. You catch my drift. We got to start thinking more critically about this stuff. Most of the men that are ADOS and non-ADOS don't really hate each other. So even this stuff of following that's very matriarchal and gynocratic. Not understanding the difference between our interests, because we'll have common and different interests, that's normal. But this thing of arguing and fighting, I'm not willing to join in with black folks picking fights with other black folks. And it's not just because my wife is not ADOS, that's not it. I'm not willing to do this largely because we got a common enemy. And that's the real enemy. And they are the original ninja. And no, they ain't black. But they're the original ninja. They trod the globe with their dysfunction, colonized and oppressed everybody else only because they made better weapons. And now look at everybody else except them, suffering. And now what are they doing? They're taking on a very African model, which is socialism to a certain extent. We arguing over socialism versus communism versus capitalism, and they're sitting up here picking and choosing and cherry picking which one's going to make it work the best for their country. Countries, actually. Those who did not do the colonization and those who did. Doesn't matter if it's Germany or Denmark, former colonizers, or if it's the rest of Scandinavia outside of Denmark, non-former colonizers. Doesn't matter. They sit back and they pick and they choose. And that's how it works for them. While we sit up here arguing with each other over which one to make work. I'm getting sick and tired of seeing us be that stupid. ADOS and non-ADOS alike, I'm tired of seeing us be that dumb. And I'm also tired of seeing both of us on both sides of the fence sit up here and follow the world's most masculine women into a grudge we don't even have with each other. You really want to know the truth. And these women, don't get it twisted. These women don't necessarily have automatic grudges with each other either. They just, it's really one thing, and that is that ADOS gynocrat, that ADOS matriarch, she doesn't even hate necessarily the Dominican woman. She just doesn't want the Dominican woman to be able to scoop you up. She doesn't hate the Haitian woman, but she knows that if she's traditional, she's going to treat you well as long as you treat her well, and she doesn't want her scooping you up. It's really nothing other than a cat fight between women that don't even hate each other, because one of them wants you to be alone and miserable, or with the worst possible option and miserable, as long as you're miserable. And the other one doesn't even understand why the first one's fighting with her. That's what this really comes down to. Yvette Cornell started this stuff so that we guys would be caught up in this, and she don't even like eggplant. How stupid are we for that? We walked right into it. Obviously, the agenda of which she is a part, I already said that part. How dumb are we? Duped again, gentlemen. ADOS and non-ADOS alike. Duped again. Because these ladies, one thing ladies do not generally fight over is normal men. And we normal men are fighting a grudge on behalf of women that would never fight over us. Again, it just comes down to resources and validation from us. Resources that the ADOS sister loves to clown us for not having enough of, and validation that they don't even value when they get it from us. And all of this while conveniently distracting us from that common enemy again. I'm not going to say, I can tell you, look, you from that particular part of Nigeria and you start talking that crap, yeah, we enemies because you insist on it, not because I got a problem with you intrinsically. No, it's not it. But understand this. I'm not about to sit up here and let anybody just use you to distract me from that common enemy. That's not going to happen. And if you're from Nigeria and you ain't one of them trash-talking, divisive MFs, then you're also a victim of the ones who are. But we straight. You and I straight. I know who the common enemy is. I've talked with people from Senegal, from Gambia, from all these different countries. And let me tell you what they've said. Many of them who actually went to the States, they know the divisive tactics. Because guess who helped with these divisive tactics in their home countries? Nuns in private schools. Didn't matter where these nuns were from, Europe or the United States. It didn't matter. They were both from Europe. And they would sit up and say these dumb things back then like, oh, African Americans play darts with faces of Africans. They don't like you very much. We don't play darts. What the what are these B words talking about? Yeah, and they weren't the only ones. I'm just saying that there were some of them. You would think nuns would at least be afraid enough of God to tell the truth. No, they were not. They were in Liberia. Of all parts of Africa, they would be in Liberia telling them this about African Americans. My ex-mother-in-law went to Ghana before my first ex-wife was born. She talked about her experience there. And she said that she remembers how she got together with some of the Ghanaians and was partying, or there was some kind of get-together at somebody's house in a nice neighborhood, and there was a white American lady, young, who lived nearby. She was invited to the party because, you know, we're not like that. Be we from the continent or from the diaspora, we're not really exclusive and exclusionary like that. We're nice to people in general. We certainly were back then. But the thing was, when this white lady realized that my ex-mother-in-law was American, she said, oh, did you come here to connect with your brothers and sisters and teach them about the white devils? And my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law, looked at her and said, well, now that you ask, you're damn right. Let me get started right now. Because she was militant like that. She still is to this day. She and I straight, even though it didn't work out with her daughter. We straight. Let me tell you, even this former mother-in-law of mine, strong, independent black woman, is getting sick of this feminism stuff. And she's had some talks with her daughter about that. Oh, so you just gonna run your man off, huh? Really? That's what you're gonna do? Okay, all right. Yeah, it was like that. She does not like this division going on. And I agree with her in that. It's not that we can't talk about actual issues. You know what, if Mr. Sperling wants to go to these governments for reparations because of the roles they played, okay, I get it. He doesn't hate them. He wants to hash this out. I sat down with an Edo, not Igbo, but an Edo lady from Nigeria in my hometown. We were talking about this. I just got through eating at a restaurant, and we got into a discussion about this. And I straight told her, look, she said something about how a lot of them didn't even know about the slave trade. And I said, well, at the time of the slave trade, people did know, because entire villages were disappearing. Understand that. So they did know at that point. She said no, and I told her no. See, you're talking about now. I'm telling you back then, many did know because it was affecting everybody on the coast and in the interior. And so yes, reparations are due. Some of these reparations, not all of them, some of them are due from your nations as well. Not because of hatred, it's just that they inherited these debts. But by the same token, when you look at Africa's role in its own slave trade, Africa paid for its sins. Africans today are still paying for the sins of their ancestors that supposedly sold off and kidnapped our ancestors, and we're still paying. Guess who's not paying for these sins yet? Still ain't paid. To a certain extent, the Middle East, more so North Africa than the Arabian Peninsula, if you really want to know the truth. Because North Africans will go into Western Africa and raid black Muslims. So yeah, they got it coming too. People from here didn't really do that. They would travel over across the Red Sea and go to the markets and buy people that were already in bondage. But people here, they really weren't big on raiding outside of the peninsula like that. They were busy doing this to each other. Before and after Islam. Well, before Islam, and then not immediately after, but all the way up until maybe, I say all the way up until about 1900s, they were doing this. I don't know when they restarted, but there was a time period after the beginning of Islam that they stopped doing that. But that's another topic for another day. But I'm just trying to be fair and assign the blame as best I can see that it goes to everybody, and I'm willing to update my opinions based on new evidence and information as it comes to me. Y'all have seen this about me. I'm not always right. I'm just trying to be fair. But part of being fair means that I don't sit up here and because I got a different interest or even a disagreement with a black person of another national origin, I turn around and I forget the common enemy that's eating the meat while we got to sit up here and divide up the bones. Not about to do that. Guess whose interest that serves? The gynocracies and her masters, her zaddies. So miss me with that right-wing crap, because it's no better than the left wing. We are to do exactly what Massa does. Pick and choose which one's going to work best for us. Pick and choose. Cherry pick. Okay, this is good for us from the right wing. That's good for us from the left wing. And when they start coming along and saying, no, you can't do that, you say, no, you fuck the shuck up. You don't tell me what I can do. You keep this mess up, I'm going to beat you over the head with this pistol and tell you what you can do and empty your pockets. If you can, I can. Devil. That's the kind of mindset we need to have with them. The right and the left wingers amongst them. And even other non-white but also non-black right wingers and left wingers. Now, I think you get the idea, the gist. I've gone on enough, and this wind noise I know is bothering you, and I don't blame you. So I'm done. Thank you for listening. You can understand why I did not turn on the peace. I didn't do the peace greeting, and I'm not going to do the peace outro either. But you understand now why I say black, heterosexual, non-select, male power, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.